Clara's hands shook as she gripped the worn leather reins of the borrowed horse. The double-bar ranch stretched before her like an endless sea of dust and sagebrush. She had traveled 3 days to reach this remote cattle ranch in Wyoming, her last dollar spent on the stagecoach fare. This job as a cook was her final chance. Without it, she had nowhere else to go. The ranch foreman, a weathered man named Tom, barely looked up when she arrived. He pointed toward a low building made of rough wood. That was the cookhouse, her new home. 20 cowboys worked this ranch, he said, and they expected 3 meals a day. No excuses, no delays. The pay was small, but it included a room and food. For Clara, it was enough. What Clara did not know was that one of those cowboys was not what he seemed. Among the men who would sit at her table, eating her food and tracking mud through her kitchen, was the actual owner of the entire ranch. He had been living as a simple ranch hand for 2 months, watching and learning who among his workers could be trusted. His name was Jedediah Cross, and he was one of the richest men in the territory. Clara's first morning came early. The sun had not yet touched the horizon when she lit the fire in the massive iron stove. 20 men needed breakfast before they rode out to work the cattle. She mixed biscuit dough with steady hands, sliced bacon, and cracked 3 dozen eggs. The work was hard, but Clara had grown up poor. She knew how to make something from nothing. The cowboys filed in as the sun rose. Most nodded politely and thanked her for the meal. They were rough men with calloused hands and sun-beaten faces, but they showed her basic respect. All except one. Silas Trent walked in like he owned the place. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with cold eyes that looked right through her. "You the new cook?" Silas asked, though he already knew the answer. "Better be an improvement over the last one. Man couldn't boil water without burning it." Clara kept her voice steady. "I'll do my best, sir." Silas laughed. It was not a kind sound. "Sir? Don't waste your manners on me, woman. Save them for people who matter." Among the last to enter was a quiet man with dark hair and calm eyes. His clothes were as worn as any cowboy's, his boots cracked and dusty. He took his plate with a simple thank you and sat at the far end of the long table. This was Jedediah, though Clara knew him only as Jed, another ranch hand earning his $40 a month. Days turned into weeks. Clara found her rhythm in the kitchen. She learned what the men liked and what they didn't. She discovered that Cookie, the previous cook, had left behind a garden with potatoes and onions. She used them to make stews that filled the cookhouse with good smells. Most of the cowboys began to smile when they saw her. They started bringing her small gifts from town: a bag of sugar, a tin of peaches, fresh coffee beans. Jed was different from the others. While most cowboys were loud and full of stories, he listened more than he talked. Sometimes Clara caught him watching her work, but not in a way that made her uncomfortable. He seemed to be studying how she treated people, how she handled problems. One afternoon, a heavy bag of flour slipped from her hands. Before she could bend to lift it, Jed was there. He picked it up easily and set it on the counter. "Thank you," Clara said. "That was kind of you." "It's nothing special," Jed replied. "Anyone would have done it." But Clara had noticed that Silas, who had been standing closer, had actually stepped back to watch her struggle. Silas made her life difficult whenever he could. He complained that the coffee was too weak, then too strong. He said the beef was tough, though others said it was perfect. He would track extra mud through the kitchen after she had just cleaned. Once he even hid the salt, then yelled at her in front of everyone when the eggs tasted bland. "Can't even season food properly," Silas announced to the room. "What are we paying you for?" Clara's face burned, but she kept working. She had dealt with bullies before. She would not let him break her. What she didn't see was how Jed's jaw tightened every time Silas spoke to her that way. Strange things began to catch Clara's attention about Jed. His hands, though dirty from work, were not as scarred as the other cowboys. When Tom the foreman spoke to him, there was something different in his voice. Not quite respect, but something close. Once she saw Jed reading a letter with fancy paper, the kind rich people used. He tucked it away quickly when he noticed her looking. One evening, while cleaning the main house, Clara found Jed in the study. He was looking at a large map spread across the desk. It showed the entire territory, with property lines marked in red ink. The double-bar ranch took up a massive section. "Oh," Clara said, surprised. "I'm sorry." "I didn't mean to interrupt." Jed rolled up the map smoothly. "No trouble. I was just curious about the land around here. It seemed strange for a simple cowboy to be studying maps in the main house, but Clara had too much work to think about it long. The real trouble came during the fall gathering. Buyers had come from Denver to purchase cattle. It was the most important week of the year. Clara worked from before dawn until after midnight, preparing massive meals for the cowboys and special dinners for the buyers. She was exhausted but proud of her work. On the last night, disaster struck. Clara had prepared her finest meal yet, roasted beef with all the fixings. The buyers were impressed. The cowboys were happy. Then Silas stood up, his face twisted with false concern. "I'm sorry to say this," he announced loudly, "but I saw this woman sneaking food into her room. Good beef that should go to the working men. And now I'm missing $20 from my bunk. It was there this morning, gone tonight." The room went silent. Clara felt the blood drain from her face. "I never took anything. You can search my room right now." "Of course you'd say that," Silas continued. "You probably already spent it, or hid it somewhere. This ranch doesn't need a thief for a cook. She should be fired tonight and sent away at first light." Some of the cowboys shifted uncomfortably. They had seen how hard Clara worked. But Silas was one of them, a cowboy, while she was just the cook. A few began to mutter agreement. The buyers looked uncomfortable. Tom, the foreman, seemed unsure what to do. That's when Jed stood up. His voice was quiet but carried through the room. "That's enough, Silas." Silas turned on him. "Stay out of this, Jed. You're nothing but a drifter anyway. Been here 2 months and think you can tell me what to do?" "I can tell you that you're a liar," Jed said calmly. "I saw you take that $20 from your own bunk this morning and put it in your saddlebag. You planned this." Silas's face went red. "You calling me a liar? You want to take this outside?" "No," Jed said. "I want to take this to the owner of this ranch." Silas laughed. "The owner?" "Mr. Cross is in San Francisco. Won't be back for months." "Actually," Jed said, his voice still perfectly calm, "he's standing right here." The silence that followed was complete. Every eye in the room turned to Jed. He stood straighter now, and somehow, he looked different. The authority that had always been there, hidden under dust and worn clothes, was suddenly visible. "My name," he said, "is Jedediah Cross. I own the Double Bar Ranch and 6 others across 3 territories. I've been working alongside you all for 2 months because I wanted to know what kind of men I employed." Tom, the foreman, nodded slowly. He had known all along, the only one who did. Jed continued, looking straight at Silas. "I've watched you, Silas. I've seen how you treat people you think are beneath you. I've seen you lie, cheat at cards, and shirk work when you thought no one was looking. But worst of all, I've seen how you treat this woman, who has done nothing but work hard and show kindness to everyone here." Silas's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. "You're fired," Jed said simply. "Pack your things. You'll leave tonight." "You can't," Silas started. "I can, and I have. Tom, make sure he's off my land within the hour." As Tom escorted a shocked Silas out, Jed turned to Clara. She stood frozen, trying to understand what had just happened. "I owe you an apology," Jed said, speaking so everyone could hear. "I should have stopped Silas sooner. But I needed to see how far he would go, and more importantly, I needed to see how you would handle it." Clara found her voice. "You were testing me?" "I was testing everyone," Jed corrected. "When you run operations as large as mine, you need to know who you can trust. Character shows best when people don't know they're being watched." He stepped closer, his voice gentler now. "You treated every man the same, whether you thought he was the poorest drifter or the foreman. You worked hard when you thought no one was looking. You kept your dignity even when Silas tried to tear it down. You, Clara, are exactly the kind of person I want on my ranches." The cowboys began to murmur among themselves. Several looked ashamed, remembering times they had stayed silent when Silas bullied her. "I have a proposition," Jed continued. "I need someone to manage the main house. Not just the cooking, but all of it. The position pays 3 times what you're making now, and you'd have your own suite of rooms. You'd hire your own staff and answer only to me." Clara's hands trembled. "Why would you offer this to me?" "Because you've already proven yourself," Jed said. "You showed kindness when you had every reason to be bitter. You showed strength when someone tried to break you. And you showed respect to a dusty cowboy who might have been nobody at all." Clara looked around the room. The cowboys were nodding, some smiling. Even the buyers seemed impressed by the drama they had witnessed. "Yes," Clara said, her voice growing stronger. Yes, I accept. The room erupted in cheers. Cowboys who had been silent before now came forward to apologize and congratulate her. The buyers shook Jed's hand, impressed by his unusual but effective method of finding good people. Later that night, as Clara moved her few belongings into the main house, she found Jed on the porch, looking out at the stars. "Can I ask you something?" she said. He nodded. "Was it hard, pretending to be someone you're not?" Jed thought for a moment. "No. The hard part was watching good people struggle and not being able to help them openly. But I learned something important. The measure of a person isn't in how they treat their superiors. It's in how they treat those they think have nothing to offer them." Clara smiled. "And what did you learn about yourself?" "That I've been hiring the wrong people for too long. I was looking at experience and recommendations. I should have been looking at character." The next morning brought changes to the Double Bar Ranch. Clara took charge of the main house with quiet confidence. The Cowboys treated her with newfound respect, and Jed, no longer hiding who he was, became a different kind of leader, one who had worked beside his men and understood their lives. The story of the secret millionaire and the cook spread through the territory. Other ranch owners thought Jed was crazy for his methods, but the Double Bar Ranch became known as the best-run operation in Wyoming, with the most loyal workers and the finest hospitality. Clara never forgot those hard first weeks. They reminded her that dignity and kindness matter more than money or position. She treated every new worker with the same respect, whether they were the newest hand or an important buyer. And Jed? He continued to pay attention to how people treated each other when they thought no one important was watching. Because he had learned that everything important about a person shows in those moments. The Double Bar Ranch prospered under their partnership. Not a business partnership, but something built on mutual respect and understanding. Both had been tested. Both had proven their worth, and both had found something valuable in that dusty, difficult place. The knowledge that character, not circumstance, determines a person's true value. Some say that years later, the partnership became something more. But that's another story for another day. What matters is this: when you judge people by their character instead of their station, you find the best in them. And sometimes, just sometimes, they find the best in you too. What did you think of Clara's story? Tell us in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more great stories of the Old West.